Hey guys, my name is Kalen Ashcroft. Thanks for tuning in to Cashcroft TV. We're going to be starting a history series on ancient Greek and Roman statesmen and warlords and kings. My primary source will be Plutarch's Lives, however, I also looked at other sources, predominantly Wikipedia and whatnot. But regardless, I think these are people that everyone should know about, for most stories and most histories are based on these um, ancient figures. Um, the vast majority of it is true. I apologize. This first one will be on Theseus, Romulus, and Remus. Is a lot more mythological than the other ones. To me, it was kind of off-putting when I first heard it. I don't want to hear about centaurs and minotaurs. It's kind of fugazi. But I guess it's important because these two were the founders of Greece and Rome, respectively, and the image that the people chose to paint them with throughout history is sort of significant in terms of how the ancient Roman and Greek civilizations, or ancient Athenian civilizations, were structured at the time. So, without further ado, I'm going to start with Theseus. So, Theseus was born or lived in about 1100 BC, which is very old. It predates the Bible by hundreds of years. So, this is a very old guy. So, it's no wonder that it's predominantly mythological. But so he was born. His father was in a small town. He was at the Delphi, and he didn't have an heir to the throne. He was one of the primordial kings in the Attica or Athens region. So he had a child with this girl who was from non-noble descent, or non-royal descent, and he left his son with her, far away from where he was king, and he left him with his sword and sandals. There's a rumor that the mother actually snuck out and had some sex with Poseidon. So supposedly Theseus is a demigod, half man. I think it's kind of just a cover up for the fact that he's a bastard, but like, let history do its thing. So yeah, Theseus grows up to be big and strong, bigger and stronger even than his dad or than any of his peers. And when he comes of age, his mother informs him that he is potentially heir to the throne of Athens. So he sets off on his quest to go to Athens. There's obviously the safer route, which is by ocean, but he chooses to go by land because he's Theseus and he's fearless and strong. So on his quest, he goes through what's called the seven labors, and these are basically just seven tyrants or seven bandits along the way that he slays, and he makes some babies on the way. But ultimately, he wins the respect of all the neighboring tribes and communities around Athens. When he gets there, his father, Aegeus, he doesn't let Aegeus know who he is immediately. But Aegeus has a new wife who has a son, and she wants him to be the heir of the throne. So she knowing who Theseus is, tries to kill him on two occasions. Firstly, she sends him to go and kill this beast, which obviously Theseus kills because he's biggest, strongest, toughest guy around. Then later she tries to poison him. But finally, Aegeus comes to his senses and sees with Theseus' sandals and sword and swipes it away and rids himself of his wife, and chooses Theseus to be his heir. So later, the Athenians have a sort of conflict with people of Minos. So Theseus, being the guy he is, super noble, super tough, chooses to go and settle the dispute by slaying or attempting to slay the Minotaur, which, while there, the daughter of the king falls in love with Theseus because not only is he the biggest, strongest, he's also the best womanizer in the land. So she gives him a ball of thread. Maybe I'll look up a picture of this. You've probably seen this before, but labyrinth. He basically goes into this and I spelled that wrong. It looks like, yeah, like kind of like this one. He goes in there with a ball of thread so he can find his way out. Goes in there, easily slays the Minotaur, and goes right out. On his way back, since he's under threat, he missignals to his father, Aegeus, that he is dead. And Aegeus is so upset that he kills himself, and hence, by jumping in the sea, and hence the Aegean Sea is named after Aegeus, because he killed himself there. So later, Theseus is king. He's not really a good statesman. People get upset. He gets exiled to another little island. While there, the king of the island that he's exiled to is so worried because Theseus is so charismatic that he might steal his throne that he pushes him off a cliff and Theseus dies. So that's kind of not uncommon for a lot of these histories. A lot of these people that just die kind of immediately because they live such dangerous lives. So moving on to Romulus and Remus. I know I'm putting two in one, but they're twins, so I think it's kind of fine to put them together. So Romulus and Remus were the daughter of the king of the area at the time. However, his brother takes the throne and makes it so their mother can't have a child, but luckily she has a child. But she hides her children by a river, and the children are raised by a she-wolf, a wolf, and they drink this wolf's breast milk and grow super strong. And later they manage to slay their uncle, and hence they get the right to be king. So the two brothers have a sort of dispute over where they should establish the city state that they're planning. Remus sees 6 birds in the sky. Romulus sees 12 birds in the sky. So Romulus assumes that he's right to be king. Remus doesn't like that, so Romulus slays him. Not the nicest guy, but he's wants to be king of a big empire, so he's got to be able to kill his own brother, I guess. But but Romulus proves to be actually a pretty good statesman, whereas Theseus was busy. He was a great hero, killing many things. Romulus actually developed a strong state out of Rome, which he named after himself. For example, he divided the state up into 3 tribes, and each tribe was ruled by a tribune, which is kind of like a municipal leader. And each tribe was divided up into 3 wards, and each ward was led by another municipal leader. Now, each ward was responsible for contributing 100 soldiers to the army and 10 cavalry. So ultimately, that led the cavalry contributed to Romulus's personal royal guard, and the other 100 were the general army. So unlike most historical figures, not only in ancient Greek and ancient Roman history, most historical figures die through tragedy, but Romulus kind of has a happy ending. There's sort of a dispute going on in Rome. Things aren't going perfect, but he just rides out into the sunset. But more importantly, the biggest contribution of Romulus was that he managed to amalgamate multiple cultures and peoples. The Romans were having a shortage of women, so they held a party. This was maybe not too good of a thing to do, but they held a party with the Sabines, which were like a neighboring peoples, and they pretty much kidnapped all the women and raped them, which really upset the men, and there was a sort of war. But the women stepped in and stopped the war, and they decided to unite the two peoples. So Theseus was the leader of the Sabines at the time, and Romulus was the leader of the Romans. Titius mysteriously dies. It's possible that Romulus killed him, but that's sort of not what history indicates. But I doubt that Romulus did not have some kind of influence on that. But regardless, that left Romulus as king of the Romans and the Sabines, which sort of, I think, sets a precedent for later Rome's ability to amalgamate other societies and cultures under its flag, after already at its inception being culturally diverse. Yeah, so after he dies, they sort of settled that the next leader should be a Sabine. That is Numa Pompilius, who we'll talk about in the next video, and I think he's got a really fantastic story, and his contribution to actually developing Rome for what it is quite phenomenal. Also, we'll be talking about Lycurgus from Sparta, who I think sort of invented socialism, really, back in the day. So I think next video will be very fascinating. But going back to Theseus and Romulus, I guess the two comparisons are, they were both in it throughout rough people or tough people. They had the guts to kill their own brother. Theseus took the road less traveled, the route by land, slayed countless beasts. They're both, the toughest guys around, and I guess it's sort of indicative of what was valued in Roman and Athenian societies at the time, and that respect they had for these people was enough to amalgamate their respective peoples. On the flip side, reasons why they perhaps weren't the greatest leaders out there. Theseus was known for kidnapping women and, obviously raping them. And, there was at least 5 of high birth that he kidnapped and raped. So, there's no doubt that there were many more from more common plebeian birth that he kidnapped and raped. Same thing with Romulus. They raped countless Sabines, which is pretty brutal. But in aggregate, I think that was not too uncommon for the times, and I doubt they were a demigod or raised by wolves, but they were very strong and tough leaders that were sufficient in rallying men behind them to create these two societies, Greece and Rome respectively. And I think they had an influence on some of the later leaders we will explore throughout history. And so that's about it. That's all I'll talk with these guys. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video, and I hope you watch the next video. I think the next video on Lycurgus and Numa Pompilius you'll really appreciate, because it's got a lot of historical or political significance in today's society that we still see. So thanks so much. Appreciate it. Good day. Bye.